from the UK. Currently, there are 6 flights a day between the UK and New York. Kate?
Sarah Harmon in London for us. Sarah, thank you. An almost unimaginable scenario is playing out in California right now with so many COVID patients. LA County health authorities are now warning hospitals may not have the resources to provide expected care to COVID and non-COVID patients alike. Megan Fitzgerald is there, and a warning, some of the images tonight are disturbing.
Tonight, COVID-19 bringing California to its knees. Hospitals overwhelmed with patients who keep coming.
We're getting crushed. I'm not going to sugarcoat this.
Rising cases already impacting the quality of care doctors and nurses can provide. A document from LA County health officials obtained by the LA Times warns that overwhelmed hospitals may not be able to provide optimal care for COVID or non-COVID patients. It reads, some compromise of standard of care is unavoidable.
This affects anyone who needs to go to a hospital for care. The number of patients that need care, COVID and non-COVID alike, are exceeding the capacity the care that hospitals can optimally provide.
LA County already out of ICU beds, averaging 13,000 new infections a day. In the last month, hospitalizations for COVID-19 patients increased 330%. Across the state, ICU availability at dangerously low levels and dwindling.
It's what we call a disaster situation. Our hospital is in a disaster situation.
Dr. Roman Dillon's Southern California hospital is operating at 270% capacity. Washington Post getting this video from inside. Patients gasping for breath. Forced to wait hours for care in packed hallways. People being seen in the parking lot and lobbies.
I felt like we were in a movie. This is some disaster movie. And when you are in such dire circumstances, you turn to what's called a code triage, where you're going to give your patients who have the best chance of survival, the priority.
The state throwing a Hail Mary to try and stop the surge, moving the famed Rose Bowl semifinals game to Texas, the first time since World War II.
Megan, it's so disturbing. So what are hospitals going to do in the short term now?
Well, Kate, there was new guidance sent to hospitals across Los Angeles County detailing best practices for frontline workers during the surge, including retraining and bringing in new staff, as well as requesting additional resources from the state. Kate?
Megan Fitzgerald, thank you. In light of what's happening, there have been so many warnings that holiday gatherings just aren't worth it this year. But despite that, millions are already on the move. And now, one of our nation's most outspoken health experts is taking heat for what she did Thanksgiving weekend. Kathy Park has details.
Tonight, holiday travelers packing airports from San Francisco to Houston, despite warnings from health officials to stay home.
Wear a mask, watch your distance, wash your hands, avoid travel.
More than 84 million will be on the move starting this week through the new year. Friday and Saturday, the TSA screened more than 2 million passengers.
I'll quarantine. I work from home. It's easy.
Meanwhile, backlash against Dr. Deborah Birx, the coordinator of the White House coronavirus response, breaking her own guidance after Thanksgiving, heading to her Delaware property with 3 generations. In a statement to the Associated Press, Dr. Birx said everyone belonged to her immediate household. Her trip underscores the challenges that many families are facing during a pandemic as they weigh the risk before travel.
I just have to remember to be safe and be conscious of myself and also other people around me.
Across the country, pre-holiday testing is in high demand. In New York, it meant waiting outside in frigid temperatures. Out west, cars wrapped around Dodger Stadium, creating its own LA traffic jam. And in Chattanooga, Tennessee, this line stretched nearly a mile. The CDC says testing before and after air travel can reduce the spread of the virus. So the agency recommends testing 1 to 3 days before your flight, plus another test 3 to 5 days after travel, in addition to 7 days at home. Many states now require a negative test or self-quarantine after arrival.
And there are dozens of airports across the country offering COVID testing, including right here at LaGuardia. There is a site where folks can actually go through a testing. That's appointment to get the results within 48 hours. Kate?
news tonight out of Congress. A stimulus deal was reached just minutes ago that would put money in the pockets of Americans desperate for financial relief amid the COVID crisis. But just how much could people get and when? Kelly O'Donnell reports from the White House.
Pandemic pain, hunger, job loss, financial hardship for millions. Congress insists COVID aid is coming.
At long last, we have the bipartisan needed.
The $900 billion package, the second largest relief bill in U.S. history, has traveled a long, bumpy road of tense deal-making. Getting it passed could happen as early as tonight.
The great news is Congress is not going to be the Grinch. We're going to get this package done.
Among the key benefits, a new round of cash payments.
If they got a check last time, they will get a check again this time, adults and children.
That's $600 for Americans who qualify based on income. For the jobless, an extra $300 per week in enhanced federal unemployment.
Till how long?
Assistance for renters and food programs.
You feel me?
For businesses, more paycheck protection loans to retain their workers. And help to keep precious cargo moving.
The cost of vaccine distribution needs to be covered. We want to keep airlines flying, buses going, transit systems going.
Despite the scope of this relief, it does not cover key priorities for Democrats who say they will push for more after Joe Biden takes office.
Democrats would have liked to provide more relief, especially to state and local governments.
And Kelly, how long until Americans will get those $600 checks?
Well, it could come quickly, even within days. And that's because the Treasury Department learned how to do this back in the spring. So this time, the $600 checks for adults and their dependent children will be delivered the same way. So if you have direct deposit, you'd receive that first. Congress still has to pass this, and they just decided they'll begin the voting tomorrow. Kate?
All right, cool.
All right, Kelly O'Donnell with late breaking news. Thank you. When we come back, the new delays impacting millions of holiday shipments and the companies that could still get your gifts there on time. With just 5 days until Christmas, there is a chance some gifts might not make it under the tree in time. Online orders backing up shipping for millions of deliveries. Jolene Kent reports.
Tonight, with Christmas just days away, the crush of holiday orders catching up to carriers trying to meet the demand. With 6 million packages in warehouses waiting to be picked up by major carriers, an average of 3.5 million packages aren't reaching destinations on time.
It's crunch time. Companies knew that this was going to be the case, and so that's why they tried to start deals earlier this year. But there are still many procrastinators out there.
To meet the unprecedented needs this holiday season, UPS expanding pickup
Didn't say anything about food stamps.
Customers can redirect their deliveries to a
A booster for this guy. That should be so cracking in it.
Easier to order gifts online.
I'm rich.
There's consequences to that, and retailers are trying to work through getting those packages to you on time.
The strain impacting the U.S. Postal Service, too. They say mail delays in part are caused by staffing shortages due to COVID-19. For those still shopping, tomorrow is the deadline for 3-day shipping with FedEx and UPS. There's still time to take advantage of Amazon's one-day delivery. If you're a Prime member, order by December 23rd to get packages before Christmas. Some customers opted to shop in person to avoid possible delays.
I do a lot of online shopping, but we're getting to that point where the delivery times are not matching up with Christmas.
And in a holiday season unlike any other, there's gratitude for those making the delivery. In Virginia, neighbors consider UPS driver Anthony Gaskin a local hero for dropping off their packages all year. Families are ready to celebrate and hoping it's worth the wait. Jolene Kent, NBC News.
Up next, the network of home cooks across the country serving up goodness.
Hello, the fuck.
Finally tonight, there's good news about the big difference a small gesture can make and how everyday cooks
I'm Colin Furs, YouTuber and investor.
Charles Watson is live in Cumming, Georgia. That's north of Atlanta, where the former ambassador, Ms. Haley's going to be campaigning for Senator Kelly Loeffler today. Hi, Charles.
That's right, Eric. We can expect her a little later today. But first, the president making some news. He again will make another visit here to Georgia in the coming weeks to rally up some support for the Republican senators, despite his ongoing feud with election officials in this state. Last night, the president tweeting, as badly as we were treated in Georgia by the Republican governor and Republican secretary of state, we must have a massive victory for two great people, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, on January 5th. I will have a big rally for them on Monday, January 4th, when, and the president isn't the only one in his administration fighting to keep the Senate red on Monday. Ivanka Trump will make campaign stops with Senator Perdue around the Atlanta suburbs. And today, as you mentioned, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley will join Senator Loeffler's statewide bus tour. This as the incumbent senators release a new ad with football great Herschel Walker.
First, let's turn our attention back to the mob, the media. Over the course of the past few weeks, we did notice a sudden, dramatic change of heart among so-called journalists and the press after spending 4 years hyperventilating every second, every minute, every hour of every day over foreign election interference, all of which has been proven to be false. These so-called journalists no longer seem to care. For example, look at this newly uncovered Eric Swalwell scandal. The congressman was reportedly dating a Chinese spy who apparently slept with a number of politicians. And according to reports, well, we now know she was working for the Communist Party of China, the same woman who bundled huge amounts of money and campaign donations with Swalwell. Well, she also placed an intern in his office. I wonder if the intern was to spy. Anyway, Swalwell sits on the ever so important House Intel Committee, and he knows secrets that nobody else is supposed to know about China. Was there any pillow talk? Now, I'm going to be very clear. I don't really give a rip about his personal life. Real question is he compromised? By the way, while we're asking that question, I wonder if Joe and Hunter are compromised by China. Did he
Might as well quit that.
secrets?
Come on, then quit that.
Did she use his computer, perhaps when he was sleeping? But the New York Toilet Paper Times has not asked any of these questions. In fact, they've not covered the story at all, not one single report, nothing. Pretty disgusting, but always predictable on their part. According to FoxNews.com, as of yesterday, fake news CNN, MSDNC spent only 5 total minutes on the scandal. That shock you? ABC gave a whopping 2 minutes. That's because they have George, what's his name? The Clinton supporter, Stephanopoulos. And NBC, CBS, they just completely avoided the topic altogether. Wonder if his name was Trump, how they would react. But the bias and omission doesn't end there. As you can imagine, big networks also have very little interest in covering the Hunter Biden scandal, as we know. Look at media research. In the 6 days since Zero Experience Hunter announced that he was under a criminal investigation over his tax affairs, the one they said no credible person has ever seen anything wrong with, that one. Anyway, the networks allotted a whopping 9 minutes and 35 seconds of airtime for the story combined over 6 days. I guess that's slightly better. Then they refused to cover the scandal before the election and told us that Zero Experience Hunter, making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, was perfectly legit. And quid pro quo Joe, leveraging, bragging about it on tape, $1 billion of your dollars, demanding the firing of a Ukrainian prosecutor investigating his son. That was perfectly fine, too. Remember, this is a federal criminal probe. It's involving money laundering, the Biden family foreign corruption syndicate, and we call that international pay-for-play scheme surrounding what are sketchy foreign oligarchs, Chinese nationals, and other shadowy figures. Now, the media mob, they can't be bothered. Turns out foreign interference isn't exactly important to them if they can't use it, of course, as a political weapon against somebody with the last name Trump. And as Kayleigh McEnany pointed out, this narcissistic bullies known as the White House press corps, needless to say, they weren't exactly pleased at hearing truth about themselves and how, horrible they do in the terms of their job. But they don't think they're great. They have that in common. Take a look.
There was no coverage, however, of Swalwell being the one implicated, but not Russia, but China. In fact, the New York Times website as of this morning, had not one result for Eric Swalwell's ties to Chinese spies. Not one result. And when the Swalwell story broke, guess how many minutes of coverage it got on ABC, NBC, MSNBC, and CBS? 0. Interesting pre-election and post-election coverage, too, on the Hunter Biden scandal, which was not covered at all by many outlets. Really interesting turn of events, and good for those who covered what was a story all along and not Russian disinformation.
Is it ever critical for you to accuse others of disinformation when you spread it every day?
Bye-bye. See ya. Fake news Acosta. Few exceptions, the entire journalism, quote, industry works on behalf of the Democratic Party, the state-run TV. And in case you were wondering, virtually no one has ever dared to ask Joe Biden about the criminal money laundering investigation into his son and the Biden foreign family syndicate corruption business, or the crack pipe. And yesterday, when our own Peter Ducey tried to get an answer, Joe Biden actually demanded that he be congratulated. Well, there's no one else that shows up for his events, so why not?
Is the threat real? Yes, sir, we believe it is. I know famous.
Yo, this is Q Richardson sitting here chopping it up with the young boy Jason Tatum. This is City Time. It's New Era NBA City Edition. When you were coming up, right, we all dreamed that we all want to make the NBA and play in the NBA and things like that and be a star.
That cranberry juice yours? That cranberry juice yours? These chips good as fuck, but they spicy as a bitch. These motherfuckers.
Thanks for the graduation. Appreciate it.
That's the treatment you expect to receive when you're a Democrat. Well, just well wishes, pats on the back. After all, during the campaign, the media mob, they actively worked. They let Joe, as the campaign candidate protection program, propped him up, didn't ask him a tough question, didn't vet him, accepted his lie on zero experience Hunter, and did the beating up of Donald Trump every second, minute, hour of every day. He could barely muster the energy. Hang on, put my sunglasses and aviators on. To get out of his own basement bunker, carefully protected his image. They concealed the Biden, foreign family syndicate business. They spiked a legitimate story by the New York Post on Hunter's laptop, the one with the crack pipe pictures. And I'm told worse. I got a pretty good briefing on that. It's going to get interesting. Now, they ignored the very serious claims from Hunter's former partner, Tony Bobolinsky. They ignored the Johnson-Grassley report, went into great detail of millions and millions of dollars in wire transfers for foreign nationals, all to the Biden foreign family syndicate. And, of course, on the flip side, they worked for 4 years to smear Donald Trump. They even used COVID-19 and the pandemic to score cheap political points. They blamed him for each and every single death. Worst pandemic since 1917. Blame Trump. Of course, they called him a racist when he enacted a xenophobic, as Joe called it, travel ban against China, then bashed him for not doing it sooner. They were busy impeaching him. They even mocked President Trump for accurately claiming the U.S. would in fact have a vaccine by the end of this year. They scoffed at it. Joe Biden told us during the campaign, there's not going to be any miracles. This is bunk. Hey, by the way, are you a junkie? Take a look.
We'll have a vaccine by the end of this year. Is that possible in your view?
Oh, Brian, it's another day of POTUS in Wonderland here. It is preposterous to make that statement.
That's an ambitious timeline, and many health experts aren't so sure it's achievable.
Experts are warning that kind of timeline may be overly ambitious, and some have even argued it's perhaps dangerous.
Will we get the best vaccine in this timetable? Or will we just get a vaccine?
A coronavirus vaccine, Trump says it can come out this year, this sort of, happy talk that he's doing about a vaccine. Experts say he didn't need a miracle to be right.
Here's the thing, you cannot talk yourself into a vaccine. The fastest a vaccine has ever been produced from start to finish is 5 years.
Journalism, I said it in 07, is dead. They don't care about facts. They don't care about truth. They only care about Democrats winning elections, and even if they have to cheat. That's it. That's That's the mission. Fake news, CNN, MSDNC, ABC, CBS, NBC, New York Times, Washington Compost. That's Eric Pimple's paper. He's obsessed with us. Perhaps the most infuriating part of it all is they lie about their true agenda. We're honest. We give news. We do straight news, investigative reporting. We give opinion. We do sports. We do culture. We're kind of like a full newspaper. They say they're news and news only. They give opinion every second of the day. From their in their ivory tower, pretending to be fair arbiters of truth. They're not. In reality, Lion Brian Williams to Dan Rather to Fake Jake to Roswell Rachel to the genius Humpty Dumpty, some of the least trustworthy people on the planet. I think they actually believe their own BS. Now, these are the same people telling us to sit down and just shut up. Accept those election results. Don't question anything. They're now demanding that we unite behind Joe, or else we're terrible Americans. Take a look.
What I heard from Joe Biden was twofold. One, a bit of the same message that he'd been communicating for several weeks, which is one of unity and trying to calm the passions of the election, but also a bit of impatience creeping in. You know, we're now well over a month after the election. This effort by Republicans to challenge the election has been garbage the entire time. They haven't come up with anything. And I think what Joe Biden was trying to say, now that the electors have voted, this garbage stinks so bad that there is no justification for any of these Republicans to continue holding out.
We've watched 4 years, the mob, the media, big tech, Democrats, they never accepted the results of 2016. They lived in a fantasy world for years, full of delusions of Russian collusion, ignoring Hillary's dirty Russian misinformation. That is a spectacular bifurcation of their brains, if you ask me.
How was your experience here at Myteam Grind today?
It has been so fantastic. Mo has done fun above and beyond absolute best.
You just said it was
Did you utilize that 4,500 bonus cash?
I was upside down on my car so much, and I would have never got out of it if it wasn't for that. I'd be stuck into the
You
car.
just turned it off. What you talking about? Why you asked me to turn it on?
I'm finally out of my Nissan. I'm just so excited to see it again.
As the feds get closer, things get grosser. The probe into Hunter's questionable income practices expands, targeting his Ukrainian dealings, China, and potential money laundering. Fox News obtained emails in which Hunter asked that keys be made for his new office mates. He shared space with a Chinese energy firm's emissary. The mates, his dad Joe, his fun Uncle Jim, and Dr. Joe Biden. It's always good to have a medical professional on staff. So this stinks like a day-old diaper in a Red Lobster dumpster. And it makes you wonder how much longer the pathetic media will pretend that there's nothing to see here. Let's note the contrast between an investigation into someone they hate versus someone they love. First, the dossier.
The dossier has been corroborated by the intelligence community.
The dossier, in fact, is far from bogus.
So far, nothing in the dossier has been disproved.
Increasingly, it's the accurate dossier.
Oh, what a bunch of dopes. Now, Hunter.
We do know that this is a classic example of the right-wing media machine. Talking about the Biden's personal corruption, a little bit about Hunter Biden. Most of those charges unverified,
Peddling baseless conspiracy theories about Joe Biden and his son.
As you know perfectly well, I'm a journalist and a reporter, and I follow the facts. And there has never been any issues in terms of corruption.
You got to point out that you're a journalist. You're not. It's worth noting, since the Hunter evidence is actually real, no one paid for a phony dossier and then had the media pass it around like a crack pipe, so it got re-verified by other jackasses. Do you remember that trick? You know, one hack shares it with another. Suddenly two sources are getting high together. They did this for 4 years. Still got nothing but dumber. Meanwhile, Hunter wasn't going rogue, but working for Joe to secure millions for him after 50 years of sniffing hair. Except Hunter didn't factor in Joe not retiring. Whoops. Now Hunter's left holding the bag, wondering if jail gets seamless. No wonder Obama asked Joe, "Are you sure you want to do this?" But sadly, China now has Joe over a barrel filled with a lot of dirt. And what a relief for Xi after 4 years of dealing with Trump, who had China's number and fought on our behalf instead of chasing popularity. No wonder China can't wait for the inauguration. Neither can Joe. I mean, a lot can happen in 6 weeks. We went to Kamala for comment. So, Joe Biden officially reached the threshold. I think they're talking about the Electoral College and not actually entering a room. You want me to read this now? Some breaking news. California putting President-elect Joe Biden over the edge. I was trying to do that. He now has passed 270 Electoral College votes. Yippee! The next major step will be on January 6th when Congress has to confirm the results. This is so exciting. So, Jesse, I love the media mocking us for covering this too much. I think we have a tweet from a CNN media guy. He's often consumed by Fox. I don't know if we have it. If we don't, I'll just keep talking and looking at your beautiful hair. I love this part. Fox News led this hour with more fallout from Hunter Biden investigation. This is from Brian Stelter, who then says Fox has a big problem with portion control. You know, I'm just going to let that go. I'm going to let that go, Jesse. I'm not going to think terrible thoughts. I am just going to say they have portion control problems with the collusion and everything else. You take it away. I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, they were gluttonous with collusion, Gutfeld, and I, too, am not going to make any fat jokes. I refrained from that in 2020, and I'm going to stick to it. It is funny, though. So Joe Biden shares his office with a Chinese communist for 3 years. So for 3 years, he puts the key in the door, he opens the door, and he walks past a Chinese guy's office, and the nameplate says something Dong is the guy's name. And then he just walks to his office and closes the door and sits down. Hey, Hunter, who's the Chinese guy named Dong we're sharing an office with? Oh, nobody, Dad. He's a Chinese communist. He represents the ExxonMobil of China. Don't worry about it. We're going to hold 10 for you. I mean, how has a reporter not asked Joe, hey, Joe, did you ever go to your office? And while you were there, did you see Dong? That would seem like a pretty relevant question, besides the question which someone still has not asked, have you ever met Tony Biddy? So let me get this straight, Joe. We have Hunter Biden, son of the president, president-elect now, I guess you have to call him. He goes over to a foreign country, brings home $500,000, hides it from the IRS, spends it on escorts instead, then gets pregnant at an escort and a dancer, and then when she says, can you pay me some child support, he says, no, I'm broke, and he fights it. This makes Don Jr. look like an angel. Don Jr. turned over everything. I mean, he sat for hours of deposition, handed over thousands of documents, and Hunter and his uncle, James, are stiff-arming congressional investigators. And Joe, meanwhile, says, I never talked to Hunter about business. He wasn't making any money in China. Everything was clean in Ukraine. And this was all a bunch of disinformation. All of that was a lie. Greg, who would have thought a lifelong politician with a history of plagiarism and family grifting could be so dishonest?
I don't know. Why? You got COVID, a virus from China. Isn't that enough to impeach Joe Biden?
I don't know. Somebody should pay a price, though. I'd be off for that, because it's hell. You know what? I've been listening, and I just think to myself, you know, we don't know how bad this is going to get for Hunter Biden. We just don't know. But I do think that President Trump is wrong to be going after Bill Barr, the Attorney General, and saying, oh, he should have disclosed this during the election. To my mind, Bill Barr was acting in accordance with the law. And so what you get now is President Trump, who has his own tax problems and whose kids have their own tax problems, trying to put the onus and the focus on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Well, there's no indication that Joe Biden has any role in this at all. And with regard to Hunter Biden, I think that we all have to understand that Hunter, he didn't say, look, they talked about Keith. I don't know that he was actually there. I don't know that. I just think it's wrong to take shots at people involved in law enforcement. I don't think that was his office, Jesse, but I'll leave that because I don't know for sure. But I'm just saying that it looks to me like, Trump has no regard for even an ally, even one of his most stalwart allies, Bill Barr, because all that Trump cares about is getting reelected. He didn't care about the law or about how this country works or the fact that we are not a country of men, but a country of laws, and it protects us all.
What?
You said what don't look
I said that didn't look right. He was eating his butt, but he was like he was breastfeeding or something. Or worse.
What's worse?
Worse than Watergate. You gotta believe it. You gotta believe it. You know, I do think that the Biden transition team is dealing with two heaping scoops of problems going into their transition. One is that all of these other stories, the Electoral College fight, the vaccine, and also Hunter Biden in a way, that is masking the fact that they've not had a great rollout of their nominees for the federal government. And in fact, the progressives are quite unhappy. And I think there's going to be some difficulty going forward for them there. And then you have to wonder, if you were the communications people for the Biden team, every day you think, how in the world did I go through the whole day and not get asked about this story? Well, I must be a very lucky person.
Yeah, Emily, you're an attorney. Hunter Biden is an attorney. What say you?
I hope you're not insinuating something, Greg. I will say this. So as we learn that U.S. Attorney John Durham is expanding his team, right, in the investigation into the Russia collusion origin probe, it's a reminder to us all how long investigations take, especially ones that span multiple jurisdictions and aren't just about tax affairs, but are actually involving complex foreign transactions and foreign powers. So two things come to mind for me about this. In addition to that reminder, I've seen the government take 5 years to investigate one count of tax evasion. So the two things are, one, the duty and the power of the media, Greg and Dana, to your points about it, and secondly, the fact that while this investigation, these multiple investigations play out, how crucial it is that there is a highlight on either conflicts of interest with now President-elect Joe Biden or the perceived conflicts of interest with him in this upcoming administration, because I think we have to know or resign ourselves to the fact that other than us, the mainstream media won't do it.
All right. I think the real scandal
You're gonna fall off the bed, Kodak.
It's just too big for this sweater.
Fucking stupid
I feel
ass.
like the flying nun. This doesn't feel right today, and it's
I
affecting
don't
my
like him
performance.
just laying in the bed and scratching. So if he's scratching a lot, say something. Like last night, nigga got in the bed and just sat
how
there.
angry you are, and I know what you're angry about. I'm going to end tonight, as I always do, on a positive note. But let's start with this.
What I didn't know is that it would hurt so much. I didn't expect this to break my heart. For him to cast a dark shadow on our most sacred right.
What a total charlatan, casting a dark shadow over our most sacred right. You mean like this?
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
I don't see his president-elect as a legitimate president.
I created an illegitimacy clock. It's on my website. If you look at it, it tells you how many days and hours Donald Trump has been illegitimate as president.
For 4 years, they plotted and schemed to undermine and overturn the sacred right of American democracy. For 4 years, they smeared the duly elected president and his supporters. Not my president, they scream, not my president. 4 years on, still they're at it, still they parade their reckless, condescending intolerance.
Kodak, baby's peeing.
I'm not going to say that 50% of Americans are racist and sexist and homophobic, but I will say that tells me that they will look the other way to that kind of behavior to the plight of their fellow Americans if personally they feel that they are doing okay and that they will do better under that type of presidency. And that, I think, is despicable. It is un-American.
Because you're a bitch ass put spaghetti in the yard, so when I let them out there,
4 years
spent the whole
of
time
non-stop
spaghetti.
hate. And now they want the Americans they dismiss and demean to just roll over and pay homage to the new regime. No, no, no. They go on about democratic norms and how Trump is undermining them. Right, let's follow their example. Let's uphold their norms, Democrat norms.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
Under any circumstances. Now, I wouldn't go that far. Refusing to concede under any circumstances would be an attempted coup. That may be a Democrat norm, but it's certainly not a democratic one. So let's agree this. And how could any reasonable person not agree? Every legal vote should be counted. No illegal vote should be counted. Any evidence of fraud or irregularity should be brought forward and the court should adjudicate. That's what the president said. That's what Mitt Romney said. It's even what Biden said.
It ain't over till every vote is counted. Every ballot is counted.
Every election has some level of fraud, irregularity, error. Usually it doesn't affect the outcome. But when it's this close, this important, with this many latent changes to the rules, of course we should investigate thoroughly. Not just for the sake of seeing our chosen candidate win, but for the sake of faith in our system. We just made a massive change to that system with very little planning and very little scrutiny. It looks like it's here to stay. So it is essential to have a proper understanding of what happened. That's not just in President Trump's interest, it's in the Republican Party's interest, and it's in America's interest. And by the way, everyone knows that if the positions were reversed, every single Democrat, every Biden propagandist on CNN and NBC and everywhere else would be telling Biden to fight and fight and fight to the end. So we can do without the lectures about undermining democracy from the people who did nothing but that for 4 years with their Russia conspiracy, who tried to derail a presidency with endless investigations through those scandals and a phony impeachment. But we can also do without false hopes being raised. Trump supporters have been through a lot. Of course we want that Trump second term, but do not give us false hope that it can still be achieved, if in fact it cannot. We want the Trump second term because of the success of the first, on the substance, on its results, one of the most successful in history. We laid that out for you last week in our closing argument. But I've said a number of times that real power in politics is not the office you hold. Everyone loses that eventually. It's not even the policies you implement. They can be reversed, and they usually are. Real power is when you change the way people think. That lasts way beyond your time in office, way beyond your lifetime. Hardly any political leaders achieve that. In my lifetime, I can only think of 3. When I was growing up in the UK, Margaret Thatcher, who led the free market revolution. Here in America, Ronald Reagan, who defeated the Soviet Empire. And now we can add a third, Donald Trump. On issue after issue, China, manufacturing, the Middle East, open borders, endless war. Trump challenged and defeated a 50-year establishment consensus. The neocons defeated, the globalists defeated, their ideology gone, replaced by Donald Trump's new conservative populism. Yes, Trumpism. Pro-business on tax and regulation, pro-worker and trade.
I'm over here like, I ain't gonna trip about it, but that would irritate me. I would think that got something to do with them getting sick.
From progressives.
The one that's on top of the AC. I know that's an
mainstream Democrats.
Can I talk? Can I talk? I'm just talking. Can I talk? Because it's whatever trying to write. Stop. No, I'm so serious. Be quiet. I'm talking about spaghetti. Bitch, in hindsight, shut up.
politics.
Be quiet.
That realignment
It's
is real.
whatever time of
We
night
need nearly
where
a
I
third of
want to be
Latinos,
talking over
record
you.
levels
Just
of
let me
violence,
talk.
doubling support from black women, higher with LGBT
Did I
Americans,
put the
working
shit out
class
there?
Americans, Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans,
You did.
over half of Native Americans.
Okay, that's what I'm talking
The highest
about
share
right
of the
now. That's
non-white
exactly what I'm
vote
talking about.
for 60 years.
I'm just talking about how you just put that right next to the shit on top of the AC. Didn't think about nothing to do with the other dogs getting sick and it being like, damn, now that they die.
Because the dogs coming over here with big diseases.
Okay.
You stupid.
I thought about the tray of food out there too. I just didn't say nothing about
But I
it.
had nothing to do with that though.
Lawyers.
So don't do it in the future. Don't add more to it. You don't get what I'm saying. You.
You have big money. It was twice as much as the
Bitch, I'm not trying to
president.
argue
Something
with
else
you.
money can't buy.
I'm not trying to argue with you. You're making me talk over you. My voice carries. I gotta say this shit every night. No, I'm talking. Let me talk. Do you think I wouldn't be saying shit at all?
Like 100%. How could that not suppress the vote? How could that poll Washington Post?
Shut up. I'm trying to teach you. Be quiet. Okay, then shut the fuck up and learn. Shut up. Because I shouldn't be saying nothing about it. Like I said, you want to... One, he peed. You loud as a bitch. You want your dog in here, but you want to be yelling, he peed. Yeah, whatever. I had to come back in here after I forgot what I was even out there doing, getting the cup and shit. Cabinet open. I'm like, why the cabinet open? Oh yeah, I was in the middle of getting something and I heard her yelling through the house, you ain't loud, it's the middle of the night, bro. Be quiet. Or how about don't put that shit in the yard so when I let him out here and eat spaghetti, he go out there and use the bathroom. That works. It's literally, I know. Yeah, I know. Bitch, you feels me? I would have been like, my bad. And I learn and not do it again. You ain't even got to say the second part, but literally, just learn how to say my bad instead of, I ain't do it. Shut up. Bitch ass.
Latinos, Black Americans, working Americans, they chose
that shit annoying.
Recovery, not Biden's shutdown. And if anyone tries any of that, I'm telling you now,
factor in the nigga to sleep. You cootie and want to grab him all the time and wake him up and shit.
We're the home of positive,
okay.
pro-worker, pro-family, pro-community, and pro-America. But if there is any
yes, I did. He's going. I just let him out. He went out there to eat the fucking spaghetti. I wasn't going out there to do that. I was letting him out because before it was spaghetti out there, the nigga would go out there and use the bathroom. Be quiet. You sound dumb as fuck. My nigga, no I don't, because you the person who don't even listen. That's the point. I wasn't going out there with him. I was letting him out. I've been letting him out. And he just uses the bathroom. Now, it's a difference when it's food out there. Shut up. I ain't taking him out there to feed him. Shut up. Nigga, the nigga get fed in this room. So why the yard is something associated with that. That's a habit you're teaching him. Okay, be quiet. Okay, so now when I let him out, he gonna be sniffing around and looking for food out there. First, he get fed in here. You don't understand nothing, but you just gonna keep talking. You put the spaghetti out there. Yes. Okay. Leave it at that. Bitch, you put it in the trash bag and you take the trash outside. Notice I'm the same person saying I had a trash bag in my room. Where did you put it? Okay, no, I didn't. I remember when you took it out. It was not full. I swear to God. It still wasn't full. Whatever. I look messy as a bitch if you take my trash bag.
You're building 20 new ships. You're rebuilding the military.
If you take my trash bag I'm using, I look messy as a bitch first having somewhere to throw my shit away. You could throw that shit wherever. You throw wherever the fuck other shit away. I didn't have the same way you said trash bag there. Yeah, that was my room trash. That wasn't no bathroom trash. So you do whatever with that. But taking my trash out of here, where do you think I'm gonna throw anything away at? You go get another bag. I had a bag for in here. You get what I'm saying? I understand if you put the bag in here and you swap. Nah, I did. So I could throw my shit away.
We as a nation,
So I can have this open and not closed because it looked like a fucking
should never happen,
kickback
can
on
never
this shit.
happen again. And you've been very outspoken about it as well.
I don't care. I gotta think about so much shit. I need you to just try. Because this shit is annoying.
You see rocks and bottles and bricks and Molotov cocktails thrown at police officers.
Like, bro, before you do something, just think.
An
Is it
autonomous
gonna affect
zone that still
anybody
remains,
else?
it's changing apparently today, but
I don't do shit that
you know,
affect
taking
nobody.
over,
Outside of your
including police
feelings, getting hurt, fuck out of here.
you're offering all of these states help, New York, Illinois, and
Nigga, that's
Washington.
what I don't do shit that affect nobody. Fuck your feelings. That's pretty much what I'm saying. Your feelings don't got shit to do with me. Yeah, whatever you ain't cheating me. How about I'm trying to talk to you to teach you because we just got a new dog because our old dogs died. Let's not do no good. Okay, bitch, so don't yell, he peeing, because that's going to lead to him being outside, right? Okay, I don't want to mad and then all the conversations start because you pee. Same way back home, they wouldn't have had a bad reputation unless you open your mouth. He let the dogs poop and pee in here. Think about it. Be quiet, please. Understand all of the shit you gotta react to and how much of it started because you opened your mouth. Please be quiet. Okay, shut up. Okay. So when you hear this say, I don't know, the dogs think I'm a yeah, nigga, they hearing it from you first. Shut up. Be quiet. Who says you to be quiet? You gonna keep talking. I ain't doing shit to you. You're the one that's gonna keep on. I didn't say I'm mad at all. Didn't say I'm mad. I'm trying to teach you. Fuck out of here. Literally. Like, I'm gonna say it again just to remind. I'm trying to teach you. If you don't want to learn, you gonna feel whatever type of way. But they got shit to do with me. Think. I don't sit there. It's like we just sitting this shit at the edge of the table and fall over everywhere.
It was paid for because they were so grateful.
Whoops.
It was paid for that reason. And they want to take it down. And you know, we can take things down too. I can understand certain things being taken down, but they ought to go through a process legally. And then we take it down, in some cases put them in museums or wherever they may go. But these are really rioters, and there are a lot of bad people involved. You know, they talk about protesters, and they're protesters, but there are beyond protesters too, and we're not going to allow it. So we have many, many people under arrest, and we have some just from the other night in Washington, but I'm talking about in other states also.
You've offered help to New York.
By the way, and Washington is not D.C., not a state. Because if I say that, a little statement like that, sometimes I'll say, should I correct myself? Because the fake news will say, he thought D.C. was a state. So I just want to make that clear so they can't do it.
Always
they
predicting.
do that, by the way, they do it all the time. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about these states, though. You see your old city, you're now a Florida resident. You're going to save a lot of money on taxes. There's no state income tax in Florida. But you see New York City, 350% increase. You see in Chicago last weekend, 102 of our fellow citizens were shot. 12 were children, and 14 died. The carnage existed all throughout these years that Joe Biden was vice president, Barack was president. I don't know any reforms that they put in place after Ferguson or after Baltimore or many other incidents.
They did virtually nothing, and they call him Corrupt Joe. He's corrupt, and you look at that administration, they have had more. And when you see what's happening, because you saw the notes now from the Oval Office meeting and all of the things.
We're going to get to that.
What's happening is a disgrace. This is a corrupt situation. We caught them spying on my campaign. They were spying. I said that a long time ago, remember? But I said it without great knowledge. It turned out to be correct. They were spying on my campaign. And if that were the other way around, if it was switched with Democrat and Republican, the opposite way, you'd have people in jail for 50 years for what they did, because that's treason. It's a terrible thing what they did. And what they've done to people like General Flynn and like others is disgraceful.
I want to get back to that. I want to stay on this issue, though. If we are to become a more perfect union, and if we really want to pursue happiness, We first have to have law and order.
Correct.
Okay, these big cities, we've watched Chicago violence now for how long? All through the Obama, Joe Biden administration.
Years ago.
They barely mentioned it in 8 years. You see Seattle, you see New York City, we see now people dying in the autonomous zone. I don't know how people can pursue their happiness and dreams in life if they don't have basic fundamental security.
You can't. You can't. Look, Chicago's an example. It's like worse than Afghanistan. It's worse than, I shouldn't say because they're working with us, Honduras, Guatemala, they're all working with us now. You know, we have our lowest numbers. We have phenomenal numbers on the border. Border Patrol has done a great job. We built 220 miles of wall. It's going up very rapidly. We should be doing about 10 miles a week now. And we're going to have, it'll be completed very soon. But what we've done there is incredible. But you look at Honduras, Guatemala, all of these different places. We have cities that are worse, in some cases far worse. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at what's happening in Oakland. Take a look at what's happening in Baltimore. And everyone gets upset when I say it. They say, oh, is that a racist statement? It's not a racist. Frankly, black people come up to me and say, thank you, sir, for saying it. They want help. These cities, it's like living in hell. But last week, and I think 2 weeks before that, they shot 14 and 18 people killed, and 68 people in Chicago.
104 last weekend.
If I've ever seen a case, I know it's very controversial to say, stop and frisk. Okay? Stop and frisk. You take guns away. Chicago is the greatest example I think I've ever seen of that. Rudy Giuliani was a great mayor. He did it in New York. He started it, and it worked great. Bloomberg blew it because he went crazy with it, and ultimately he took away a lot of rights and it wasn't a good job he did. But Rudy Giuliani started stop and frisk, and he did it was a great thing he did for New York.
The murder rate went, for those that don't know, I lived in New York City at the time, went from around 2,500 a year. They drove it all the way down to 500. And what they did is they went into the areas that had the highest incidence of crime and saved a lot of lives. So we're Americans. I think we can do anything. I'm that optimistic. We could stop the violence, right?
We could stop it quickly. And at some point in the not too distant future, I'm going to do it. And if they don't do something with Seattle, we're going to do that. We're going to go in there because what's happening is they're taking over American cities. By the way, in all cases, it's Democrats. They're Democrat run, in all cases. And Joe Biden would have that be the whole country. It's so crazy what's happening. This guy doesn't talk. Nobody hears him. Whenever he does talk, he can't put two sentences together. I don't want to be nice or unnice, okay? But, I mean, the man can't speak. And he's going to be your president because some people don't love me, maybe. And, all I'm doing is doing my job. Don't forget, before the China plague came in, and it's a China plague, before that came in, we had the best job numbers we've ever had. We had the best economy we've ever had. We had the best stock market we've ever had, which, by the way, is getting very close to those numbers anyway. And in NASDAQ, it's actually beat those numbers. But we have the best numbers we've ever had. African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, women, young people without a diploma, young people with a diploma, college, everything. We have the best numbers we've ever had, the best economy we've ever had. I was absolutely doing a number on China. Not that I want to, but we're taking billions and billions away. China ran away from us when they were going to take over our country. If I didn't come along, they would have taken over our country. What they did to Obama and Biden, they ripped off this country hundreds of billions of dollars a year going into China. And nobody said anything.